Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. In the heart of Solarius, a theocratic kingdom where the Church of Eternal Light governed with an iron fist, the air was thick with the weight of unspoken fears. The kingdom's nights were darkened not only by the absence of the sun but by the shadow of the midnight trial, a ritual of judgment that no citizen dared to speak of openly. As the moon reached its zenith, the church bells tolled, marking the hour when accused souls would be brought forth to face their fate. Alina stood alone in the small, dimly lit cell beneath the grand cathedral. The cold stone walls seemed to close in on her, their oppressive silence broken only by the distant, echoing footsteps of the guards who patrolled the corridors above. Her heart pounded in her chest, the fear of what was to come gnawing at her resolve. She was a mage, young and talented, but inexperienced in the ways of the world outside her studies. The accusation of using black magic had struck her like a thunderbolt, and now, with the midnight trial looming, she was faced with the impossible task of proving her innocence. The door to her cell creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. It was Master Thorn, her mentor and the only person she could trust in this dark hour. The lines on his face were deeper than she remembered, and his eyes, usually filled with wisdom and warmth, were clouded with worry. "Alina," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper, "you must understand the gravity of what is happening. The midnight trial is not just a judgment, it is a spectacle designed to instill fear. Once accused, very few have ever escaped its grasp." Alina swallowed hard, her throat dry. "I didn't do it, Master Thorn. I've never used black magic. I wouldn't even know how." Thorn nodded, his gaze steady but somber. "I know, child. But the truth alone won't save you. The church doesn't care for truth, it cares for control. You've been caught in a web far greater than you realize." "Then what do I do?" Alina's voice trembled with desperation. "How can I prove my innocence?" "There may be a way," Thorn said, leaning closer as if the walls themselves had ears. "But it is dangerous. You must find evidence, something that shows you were framed. And you must do it before the trial begins, or all hope is lost." Alina's mind raced. She had little time, and the odds were stacked against her. But she couldn't give up, not now. If she didn't fight, she would become another lost soul, condemned to eternal unrest. The thought of it filled her with a cold dread, but also with a fierce determination. "Where do I start?" she asked, her voice stronger now, though still laced with uncertainty. Thorn hesitated, then reached into his robes and pulled out a small, worn book. "Start with this. It's a journal, a record of past trials, kept by a former High Inquisitor who began to doubt the Church's methods. It might lead you to the truth, but be careful, Alina. The Church has eyes and ears everywhere." Alina took the book, its leather cover cool against her palms. "Thank you, Master Thorn. I won't let you down." Thorn placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm but reassuring. "Remember, the midnight trial is designed to break you. They will try to make you doubt yourself, to force a confession. But you must stay strong, no matter what." With those final words, Thorn left, leaving Alina alone with her thoughts and the journal, a small flicker of hope in the suffocating darkness of her cell. She knew she had to act quickly. The midnight trial would begin at the stroke of midnight, and time was slipping away. As she opened the journal, the faint light from the small window above her fell on the yellowed pages, revealing the meticulous handwriting of the former High Inquisitor. The entries were detailed, chronicling the trials of those who had stood where she would soon stand. Alina read quickly, her eyes scanning each page for anything that might help her. As she delved deeper into the journal, a pattern began to emerge, one that sent chills down her spine. The accused were not random, they were targeted. Mages, scholars, and even nobles who had shown dissent or who possessed knowledge that threatened the Church's power had been systematically accused and eliminated through the midnight trial. The journal detailed how evidence was fabricated, witnesses were coerced, and confessions were extracted under duress. It was all a grand charade, a show of power designed to eliminate threats and maintain control. Alina's hands trembled as she turned the pages. She was not just fighting for her life, she was up against a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of the Church. The current High Inquisitor, Lord Andrus, was the architect of this sinister plan. The journal hinted that he had dabbled in the very dark arts he condemned, using them to manipulate the trials and eliminate his enemies. She knew what she had to do. If she could expose Andrus's hypocrisy and the corruption within the Church, she might stand a chance. But she needed proof, something concrete that would reveal the truth to the world. The journal mentioned a hidden chamber beneath the cathedral, where Andrus kept forbidden texts and relics, evidence of his own dark dealings. It was a place few knew of, and even fewer had dared to enter. Alina realized that this chamber held the key to her survival. If she could find it and retrieve the evidence, she might be able to turn the tide in her favor, but getting there would not be easy. The cathedral was heavily guarded, especially at night. She would have to be careful, stealthy, and above all, quick. The clock was ticking, and she had no time to waste. Alina hid the journal in her robes and waited for the right moment. As the guards changed shifts and the cathedral fell into a temporary lull, she slipped out of her cell, moving quietly through the shadowed corridors. Her heart pounded in her chest, every sound amplified in the silence of the night. She knew that if she were caught, it would be the end. The cathedral was a maze of corridors and staircases, each one more foreboding than the last. But Alina had spent years studying within its walls, and she knew its layout well. She moved with purpose, her steps guided by the knowledge she had gained from the journal. After what felt like an eternity, she found herself standing before a nondescript door hidden deep within the catacombs beneath the cathedral. This was it, the hidden chamber. Alina hesitated for a moment, her hand hovering over the door's handle. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever lay beyond, then pushed the door open. The chamber was dark, illuminated only by the faint glow of enchanted crystals embedded in the walls. The air was thick with the scent of old parchment and the metallic tang of ancient relics. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books, scrolls, and artifacts that pulsed with dark energy. Alina's eyes were drawn to a large, ornate desk at the center of the room. On it lay a collection of tomes bound in black leather, their covers marked with symbols of dark magic. This was the evidence she needed, the proof that Lord Andrus had been using the very magic he condemned to maintain his grip on power. She carefully gathered the tomes, her fingers tingling with the dark energy they emitted. As she did, she noticed a small, locked chest hidden beneath the desk. It was different from the other items in the room, more ornate, more carefully protected. Whatever was inside must be important. Alina searched the desk and found a small, silver key hidden among the papers. She used it to unlock the chest, her heart racing as she lifted the lid. Inside, she found a collection of letters, sealed with the emblem of the Church. These letters detailed the corruption within the Church, including orders from Andrus to eliminate his rivals and manipulate the trials. This was the final piece of the puzzle. With these letters, she could expose Andrus and bring down the corrupt institution that had terrorized the kingdom for so long. As she turned to leave, the door to the chamber suddenly creaked open, and Alina froze. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the faint light from the corridor. It was Lord Andrus himself, his eyes burning with fury and the unmistakable aura of dark magic surrounding him. "So, you found my little secret," Andrus said, his voice cold and menacing. "I knew you were resourceful, but I didn't expect you to get this far." "No matter, it ends here." Alina's mind raced. She was trapped, with no way out but through Andrus. The air crackled with tension as he stepped into the chamber, the door closing behind him with a finality that sent a shiver down her spine. "You think you can expose me? Bring down the church?" Andrus sneered. "You're nothing, just another misguided fool who will meet the same fate as all the others." Alina's grip tightened on the tomes and letters. She knew she had no choice but to fight, but she was outmatched. Andrus was a powerful mage, and she was weakened by fear and exhaustion. But she couldn't give up. Not now. With a burst of determination, Alina began to chant a spell from one of the forbidden tomes, her voice strong despite the fear gnawing at her insides. The words of the spell resonated in the chamber, and a powerful wave of energy erupted from her, aimed directly at Andrus, but Andrus was ready. With a flick of his wrist, he deflected the spell, the energy dissipating harmlessly against the walls. He laughed, a cold, cruel sound that echoed in the chamber. "Is that the best you can do? You'll have to try harder than that." Alina gritted her teeth, her mind racing for a plan. She knew she couldn't defeat Andrus in a direct confrontation, his power was too great. But perhaps she could outsmart him. As Andrus prepared to unleash a spell of his own, Alina quickly muttered another incantation, one that created an illusion of herself standing in the center of the room. The real Alina moved swiftly to the side, hiding in the shadows as the illusion confronted Andrus. Andrus unleashed his spell, a bolt of dark energy that struck the illusion squarely in the chest. The illusion shattered, but before Andrus could react, Alina sprang from the shadows, using the element of surprise to her advantage. She aimed a spell at the chest that contained the incriminating letters, causing it to fly open and the contents to scatter across the floor. Andrus's eyes widened in shock as he realized what she had done. The letters were now exposed, their damning contents visible for anyone to see. "You think you can stop me with a few pieces of paper?" Andrus snarled, but there was a note of desperation in his voice now. Alina didn't respond. Instead, she cast another spell, one that amplified her voice and carried it through the walls of the cathedral. Her voice echoed through the corridors, reaching the ears of the guards, the priests, and the citizens outside. "People of Solarius, hear me," she cried. "The High Inquisitor, Lord Andrus, has betrayed you. He has used black magic and manipulated the midnight trials to maintain his power. He is the true heretic." The response was immediate. The cathedral shook with the sound of footsteps as guards and priests rushed toward the chamber. Andrus's face twisted in fury as he realized he had been outmaneuvered. "This isn't over, girl," he spat, gathering his dark magic for a final, desperate attack. But before he could strike, the door to the chamber burst open, and the guards stormed in, weapons drawn. Andrus hesitated, his gaze darting between Alina and the advancing guards. In that moment of indecision, Alina saw her chance. She unleashed the last of her strength, casting a powerful binding spell that enveloped Andrus, restraining him before he could react. The guards quickly moved in, taking Andrus into custody. His furious protests and threats echoed through the chamber, but the power he once held over them was shattered. The guards, now aware of the truth, showed no mercy. Alina slumped against the wall, exhaustion washing over her. She had done it. She had exposed the truth and survived the midnight trial. But the cost had been great, and she knew that this was only the beginning of a long and difficult journey. Master Thorn arrived shortly after, his expression a mix of pride and concern. "You did it," Alina. You've brought down a monster and saved countless lives. Alina managed a weak smile. But at what cost, Master? The church is still powerful, and there will be others like Andrus. Thorn nodded, his gaze distant. Yes, but now there is hope. The people will demand change, and the church will have to answer for its crimes. And you, Alina, have given them the courage to fight. As the first light of dawn broke through the small window in the chamber, Alina felt a sense of peace for the first time in what felt like an eternity. She had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but she knew her journey was far from over. The church would be reformed, justice would be sought, and those who had suffered under the midnight trial would finally find peace. Alina vowed to continue her fight, not just for herself, but for all those who had been silenced by the darkness, and so, as the sun rose over the kingdom of Solarius, a new chapter began, one where the light of truth would shine through the shadows, and where the people, led by a brave young mage, would reclaim their freedom from the grip of fear.